Hello, Thoreau fans. Corrine Smith here with a review of the new and relevant books that came out this year, 2022. I will be featuring about 7 books, give or take a couple. I also know that a few folks out there have self-published their own books this year. If that includes you, feel free to leave your comments below so that we give you proper credit. Let's start with books for adults. There are 4, maybe more. Last spring we got 6 Walks in the Footsteps of Henry David Thoreau by Ben Shattuck. This book got a lot of early publicity and there was a lot of anticipation built up around it. It's Ben's first book and it's a memoir. And he lives in eastern Massachusetts and he went out on walks to work through some personal challenges, really. And so he was walking in the footsteps of Thoreau on Cape Cod, on Mount Katahdin and the Allagash, and on Mount Wachusett. He uses selected Thoreau quotes to begin his chapters, and this is actually more a journey of self-discovery for Ben, rather than brand new information about Thoreau, which is okay because, you know, we have guidebooks from the past that will tell us how to go in his footsteps. So it's an interesting read. You probably learn more about Ben than you do about new information about Thoreau, which is okay. It's Ben's memoir, okay? 6 Walks in the Footsteps of Henry David Thoreau. Next up is a book that you may not have heard about unless you hang out in the Concord area. It's Ron McAdow's book, Concord Village, A Guided Walk Through the Past. This is a guidebook with details about the historical houses and the buildings that you can find all throughout the town. Got lots of pictures, lots of historical details, some pictures of memorabilia and ephemera. And you may wonder, okay, well, why do I need to know about all these houses? You know what? Maybe you don't, okay? But for those of us who have spent more than a few hours looking through the historical inventories of the properties as they are on file at the special collections at the Concord Free Public Library, this book is a godsend. Would have saved me a lot of time a number of years ago. Anyway, you can also just read through the entries and find out all kinds of cool things about some of these people and what was going on and interesting things you never would know. It's a neat kind of tour guide to the whole town. Ron is a former teacher and he's local to Concord and Lincoln. This is not his only book, so this one may also help you to interpret some of the text for the next book that I am going to talk about, which is The Transcendentalists and Their World by Robert Gross. Came out in hardback last year, November, a year ago. Now we get the paperback. The hardback is $40, the paperback is $25. They're available in both forms. If you are a Thoreau and Emerson fan, then you probably should read this book. It is a commitment, 600 pages of text, 200 pages of footnotes. It's well worth the effort. The first half of the book details daily life in Concord in the early part of the 1800s with, you know, about politics, social organizations, lots of them, and their records are still on file. How cool is that? Education, the churches, what was going on in the religious movements. And then the second half of the book puts Mr. Emerson and Mr. Thoreau into the mix. How did they relate to all of that? Did they relate to all of that? This is the key question. So Transcendentalists and Their World by Bob Gross. This book also pairs well, and this is sort of a half reference, to the re-release of a new, revised, and expanded edition of Bob's previous book, The Minutemen and Their World. First came out in hardcover in 1976 in accordance with the American Bicentennial. Came out in paperback in 2001 with an additional foreword by historian Alan Taylor. This one is a new, revised, and expanded edition with both an additional preface by Bob and a very enlightening afterword by Bob Gross, where he talks about the surprises and the revelations that he had during his research process and what he has learned since he first published and wrote the book. So if you want the most complete picture and understanding of this important community, you might want to read both in order, okay? But definitely Transcendentalists and Their World. So thank you again, Bob. Now, something else that came out this year is a little field notebook from the Thoreau Society, put together by Kathleen Coyne Kelly, editor of the Concord Saunterer. And so it's called a field notebook, and it's got an introduction about Thoreau's journal. And then it has blank pages for you to use yourself with inspirational drawings from Thoreau's own journal at the top of the pages. So there you go. You can be inspired by Henry both in words and artwork and use this little field notebook. It's only available through the Thoreau Society shop at Walden Pond, either in person or online. Let's turn to children's books. And we have 3 of them to see. First one is I Begin with Spring, The Life and Seasons of Henry David Thoreau, written by Julie Dunlap and illustrated by Megan Elizabeth Baratta. It is a highly illustrated book. Highly illustrated book. Study of how Thoreau used his journal to document the seasons. And in addition to the many illustrations and the wonderful text, there is a timeline running along the bottom of the pages from March through February, which documents some of Thoreau's sightings, natural sightings along the way. There's Henry's spyglass. This book has a lot of information in it, a lot of information, including, at the end, an expanded explanation of exactly, what Thoreau was doing with his journal. I do kind of wonder who the target audience is for this book. Some sources list it as kindergarten through 4th grade. Others say grades 3 to 7 and ages 9 to 12. I think kids in those age groups would get something out of this, but not everything. This is the kind of book where the more you see it, the more you go through it, the more you're going to find and the more you're going to see. So I actually recommend it to adults too. And then if they want to, they can share it with the children in their lives. This book has appeared on a number of lists for best children's nature books this year. So it is a worthy addition to our genre. Again, chock full of information, chock full of wonderful, wonderful illustrations. Oh, it's a beautiful book. It's a beautiful book. So let's say it's for middle grade and up, including adults. Now, this summer, Donna Marie Przybojewski gave us Henry and the Runaway Pig. This story is based on Thoreau's journal entry of August 8th, 1856. Yeah, guys, go look it up. August 8th, 1856, when the family pig broke out of the Thoreau pen. And Henry had to go track down this creature, and as you could imagine, the pig led him on a merry chase throughout the neighborhood. Some neighbors offer advice on how to catch him, but it's mostly up to Henry to figure out how not only to catch him, but to also get him back to the pen. And since it was also a rainy day, there's a lot of mud involved. Okay, this is another one of Donna Marie's illustrated stories about Henry, based on a specific journal entry. And actually, if you go back to that journal entry, you find out that the pig escapes again about 2 weeks later, and it takes a lot longer to get him back home. And anyway, so that's Henry and the Runaway Pig by Donna Marie Przybojewski. Thank you, Donna Marie. And then, just a few weeks ago, we got Of Walden Pond, Henry David Thoreau, Frederick Tudor, and the Pond Between, written by Lesa Cline-Ransome and illustrated by Ashley Benham-Yazdani. It's another beautiful book. Do you recognize, first before I open it up, do you recognize the name Frederick Tudor? He's the guy who, a businessman who went out and wanted to cut up all the ice in Walden and ship it overseas, ship it to like India and other places. Okay, so this is really told as a juxtaposition between Henry and the ice cutters, and specifically Henry and Frederick Tudor. There's Henry. You see Henry? Maybe. It's a beautiful book, and this is another story that is seldom told, and certainly an interesting one that lends itself to a children's book. And there's the ice going around the world. Yes, it's a really beautiful book. And then at the end, we do get a description of, I can get it for you here. Well, here's a good picture of Henry on one side and Frederick Tudor on the other. And actually, doesn't Frederick Tudor kind of look like Mary Moody Emerson there? I think so. Maybe he did, you know. Maybe he did. So there's an expanded note at the end about the ice cutting business, including pictures of the ice cutting tools that they used at the time. What a cool story for a book. That's Of Walden Pond by Lesa Cline-Ransome. For some reason, this book immediately reminded me of a 2005 book, The Trouble with Henry, by O'Neill, Westengard, and Schindler. Another Thoreau scholar told me the same thing without me even mentioning it to him first. I'm not exactly sure why. Totally different writers, but, you know, also a beautiful book set at Walden Pond. Maybe it's because both of them show Henry as being different from other people. Yeah, of course, you know. Anyway, if you're interested in finding out more children's picture books about Thoreau, feel free to look at my other previous video about them, link above, link below. And if you know any others that I've forgotten along the way, please let me know. Post a comment below. Now, those are the books that came out in 2022. Looking ahead into the year 2023, which is almost difficult to say and even difficult to think about. When you were a little kid, did you ever think you would be alive in the year 2023? Or even the year 2000, which seemed just like science fiction to us? Of course it was. Anyway, looking ahead to 2023, what do we know about forthcoming books? Well, late in January, we are going to get the last book written by Robert Richardson. It's 3 Roads Back, How Emerson, Thoreau, and William James Responded to the Greatest Losses of Their Lives. And as you know, Bob Richardson is a biographer of all these 3 men, Emerson, Thoreau, and William James. You probably should have read Henry Thoreau, A Life of the Mind, and you probably should have also read The Mind on Fire about Emerson. Bob passed away about 2 years ago during the summer of 2020, and this is a book that he was evidently working on. The foreword is written by Megan Marshall, and I'm sure she will do a good job at explaining how this book came about. So we have less than a month to wait for this one. It's going to come out in the 20s of January 2023. And that's all that I see on the horizon so far, folks. We still don't have any predictions about when Volume 3 of Correspondence will arrive from Princeton University Press. Editor Bob Hudspeth told me before the pandemic that he had submitted his final manuscript of Correspondence 3 to the publisher. Where is it? It's not even listed on their website yet. So we continue to wait. And of course, as you know, the waiting is the hardest part, as a famous man once said. So fingers crossed, we get Correspondence 3 in 2023. Will this be the year? I don't know. So that wraps up my video for this day. Feel free to like, subscribe, ring the bell. Comment below. Have you read any of these books this year? What did you think? There's some good ones. All of them. I can't recommend all of them highly enough, really. So, thanks for watching. I'm Corinne Smith. I'll see you next time. And in the meanwhile, keep on reading, keep on studying Thoreau.